Hi everybody, we're the Chris's and welcome to It's Complicated. This is going to be a series of hopefully short videos that will describe different aspects of shame and how to work with it and hopefully heal shame ruptures. So this time we're going to introduce the series with adaptive shame. We're the Chris's, and just a little bit of our background. We're a peer specialist, life coach. We are kind of a peer scholar. We work on making self-help materials, mostly for people who are plural and who have C-PTSD. And this is a follow-up on a long talk that we gave at the Plural Positivity World Conference in 2022 called Let's Talk About Shame. And in that hour and a half presentation, we talked about adaptive shame, toxic shame, and carried shame. You can find that in the @Plural Events channel on YouTube if you would like to watch that. It's a little long and probably could use to watch it with others who are also interested. We're still learning about shame, even after our 2022 presentation, learning about more types of shame, learning more nuances in shame, more about how to work with it and recognize it, and so on. So we figured we would make a series to help people catch up in a bunch of short videos, and we're going to cover at least a half dozen ways that shame becomes a problem that derails people's lives. And we hope to keep adding videos to the series as we uncover more information and figure more things out. And this series is helpful for anyone who has experienced relationship ruptures. I'll be able to say it one day. Relationship ruptures, betrayal trauma, inconsistent parenting, social exile, and essentially anyone who has C-PTSD, including survivors and refugees, folks who are neurodivergent, and folks with dissociative disorders, that's our specialty, and personality disorders, and all of their professional team members, the people who work with them, therapists, peer specialists, and so on, caseworkers who want to understand how to work with their clients and perhaps trigger them less and help heal relationship ruptures. This information applies to most plural systems and also applies to singular systems, so singular people who are not plural. We're plural. We're going to talk about plurality here and there just because we can't help ourselves, but I assure you this applies across the board. Yeah. So let's talk about adaptive shame. Adaptive shame is a natural shame. It's the shame that we as humans and mammals should probably have as a protective measure. So adaptive shame is a group of fears and protective reactions that monitor threats to our belongingness, inclusion, rank, and status in the groups that we belong to. We have some theories about how adaptive shame developed in humans, and we'll share those a little bit later. So in terms of early development, in childhood development, when does shame come into play? We're not born with all of our emotional maturity. We're also not born as humans able to walk, talk, feed ourselves, go out and, hunt down our own food or go gathering our own berries or even recognizing what berries are safe, right? So we're born completely helpless. We need a caregiver. We need some kind of a clan or people around us in order to survive. So in early development, here we are, we're completely helpless, and we attach naturally to those who are performing caregiving duties for us. We usually start bonding quite early, and at some point we start recognizing strangers versus those whom, have been taking care of us more, and so on. So we form attachments to folks around us. And in an ideal world, we start to learn to trust them and expect that we will be fed when we're hungry and that we will be changed when we're uncomfortable and so on. So in ideal circumstances, when things are being taken care of, we start to see our caregiver, those to whom we're attached, as kind of a mirror of things about ourselves. When they look at us with love, we feel worthy of love. When they protect us, we feel worthy of being protected. When they fulfill our needs, we start to internalize our own value of filling our own needs. And in this kind of development, there comes a point where we start to express some types of freedom of movement, walking and learning to crawl and all of those things. And we move further away from our caregiver, that young toddler who is running down the mall hallway and their caregiver is running after them with their stroller or whatever, right? So we have the situations where the kid is, laughing and running and, haha, I'm making you follow me. Right? So the kid is, expressing some amount of their freedom in spite of having this attachment with their caregiver. And a shyer kid might go a few feet away and then feel uncomfortable because that tether between them and their caregiver is getting stretched and then run back to their caregiver. So that attachment ends up kind of being like a rubber band, right? So we're going to show an illustration here on the screen of the use of shame as a safety control measure in caregiving. So here we have ancient forest, and we have this berry tree over here on the left, and caregiver is, as hunter-gatherers do, about to gather some berries from the tree. All right, I'm going to go and pick berries on the tree, and I'm going to let my kid, stand on the ground near me and do their thing. Kid starts wandering off. Ooh, look, I can be just like my caregiver, and I'm going to pick some of these berries over here. But if you notice, this tree looks very different from the other tree. And caregiver goes, oh no, and, maybe says no really loud, right? And the kid hears no really loud, and the kid gets this queasy feeling in their belly, like, oh no, I've done something wrong. I've done something that might, wreck my relationship with my caregiver. What did I do? And they drop the berry, right? They just like, oh no, I'm not going to put that in my mouth. Obviously something's wrong. I got to stop everything I'm doing and pay attention. And then, of course, if the caregiver's doing their job right, they run over and they console the baby and whoops, let's see if I do it right. Okay, they pick the baby up and they're gonna console the baby and calm the baby's fears. It's like, no, no, I still love you. It's okay. You just can't eat those berries. That's not the same berries. You know, here, let me give you some safe berries. These are the safe berries. Those are not the safe berries. Um, you know, and the caregiver will mend the rupture in the child, that queasy feeling, that fear that comes up for that child when the caregiver goes no. Then there's a healing of that rupture. When the caregiver recognizes that the child is really disturbed, the caregiver goes over and comforts the child and reassures the child that everything's okay, right? I'm not mad at you. You didn't do anything wrong. It was the berries' fault. It wasn't your fault. You know, you need to learn to recognize the right berries, but it wasn't your fault. So let's come over here and I'll show you what the good berry tree is, you know, or things like that, right? That would be an appropriate caregiver response to a young child doing something that might hurt them, right? So that's an adaptive shame illustration for a developmental situation where the child is quite young. So here we have another illustration where we're going to use adaptive shame. And this person, it's me, let's say. I walked into the room and I bumped into the table and something fell off the table and broke at my friend's house, right? So at my friend's house, I bump into the table, something fell off of it and broke. And now I'm like, oh dear, like, crud. Let's say my friend's not even in the room. My friend doesn't even know yet that something broke. But I get that queasy feeling in my belly, like, oh no. What if that's like my friend's favorite thing? And what if my friend's gonna be mad at me? So I feel this queasiness, like, oh no, something bad has happened. And I feel that. But then if I have adaptive shame, if I'm not traumatized, then I go, oh, well, what should I do about it? Well, probably the first thing I should do about it is let my friend know. And tell my friend, I'm really sorry. Can I help somehow? Can I replace it? Can I fix it? And so the first thing I would do is try to mend the relationship that I have with this person and own up to it and respect this person and their property by owning what happened. Other ways that adaptive shame might happen is, like, let's say I consider while I'm standing there and I'm looking at this broken object, it's like, well, I could just sweep it under the rug and then my friend will never know. But then I get a different feeling. I get another, like, but what if my friend finds out? Then I've done two bad things, right? There's the accident of having knocked this thing off, but then there's deliberate accident, which, if I'm found out, will definitely piss my friend off and definitely cause a rupture in this relationship. So that shame that comes up, or that little bit of guilt about going against my own standards, my own integrity, but also possibly warning me that I might be found out. And it's the being found out that becomes shame there. Because it would rupture the relationship, because I would lose rank and status with my friend, because I might even lose belongingness with my friend. My friend might, if I lied about it and I tried to hide it, my friend might be even more likely to push me away. And it would be a not very good friend thing to do. So that shame that comes up warns me about my actions and helps me to consider what to do, what path to take to preserve my relationships. So basically, the shame is there to help me figure out where the lines are in my social circles and what what things are okay and not okay within my social circles and what kinds of things I want to do. Am I going to, I mean, even though I made the mistake, okay, so now I have to either deal with the mistake or try to hide the mistake. But is it going to be even more of a mistake if I try to hide it? And hopefully my relationship with my friend is good enough, and hopefully this object is not important enough that it becomes such a huge problem. So, in terms of how we have started looking at these survival strategies, we have taken the panic reactions that we've been logging for years and split them up between two different categories. We have survival of the individual, which we consider to be dino brain. It's part of the oldest part of our autonomic nervous system. And it comes from way back, maybe even before the dinosaurs, but we call it dino brain. And dino brain is very obsessed with me surviving as an individual, getting my food and very basic survival needs met, food, shelter, shelter from the elements, in storms, and, clothing came much later, but basically dino brain is all into like, I have to survive no matter what. And so it has very automatic autonomic nervous system responses: fight, flight, freeze, flop, and maybe fortify. Fortify is kind of a weird one that we haven't really figured out if it straddles both categories or if it's fully on the dino brain side. Fortify is, I'm just going to put up walls. I'm going to lock down. I'm going to build fences. I'm going to build shelters. I'm going to hide, behind some kind of a wall. And sometimes we do it entirely internally with our emotions, but sometimes we also do it physically, like, going into another room and closing the door and feeling safer now that we're in a room, with the door closed and there's walls all around us. And so we're kind of physically fortifying versus emotionally fortifying. So that might be where it fits under both categories. So we have here on the left all of our individual survival strategies that are kind of coded into our nervous system. But I also posit that the relational survival strategies are also a part of being human, but maybe they're a different part of the nervous system that came later and is built on top of the dino brain layer that came from much earlier in our ancestors' development. So this newer brain, buddy brain, we consider to be the more mammal side of our survival strategies. When mammals started going through ice ages and deciding we better buddy up, we better keep each other warm, we better tend our young together, pool resources, hunt together, store food together, let's build fires together once we started building fires, or little like rodents or whatever in a big cuddle pile to keep warm. And when somebody on the outside gets too cold, they kind of nuzzle their way into the middle to warm up for a while. So that would be the buddy brain side of this, where we have other behaviors around survival as a member of a collective. So our individual survival is still central in this collective survival, that we're doing these things to ensure that we as an individual survive within this group, that we are preserving our belongingness, inclusion, rank, and status within the group collective for the benefits of collective survival. So for example, when we fawn, usually we're fawning to somebody we perceive as being powerful. So the biggest warrior in our tribe, or maybe the tribe leader, or chieftain or whatever you want to call them. So the head honcho, we're like gonna make ourselves small and useful and indispensable. Follow is more of a mini me. So it's like I'm going to imitate, the head honcho, the chieftain, the whoever, and I'm going to be their right-hand man, and I'm going to be so like them that I fly under the radar, or they take me on as an apprentice, or they will see so much of them in me that they will maintain the relationship with me, and their little protective bubble will include me. Fabricate is I'm going to lie my pants off. I'm going to make shit up. I'm going to make up stories. I'm going to cover up the truth in order to hide my mistakes. Facilitate is a leadership skill of delegate, orchestrate, all the other members. When there's a panic situation, my emotions are shoved completely aside. I'm going to manage the situation, and I'll have the emotional fallout later. Fitting in is I'm going to be one of the flock so that I don't stand out. So I can't be picked on. I can't be singled out. And I'm going to do my best to blend in. And then funny is court jester. If I'm funny enough, if I make the powerful bullies laugh, then they may keep me around longer. Diffuse the situations. And so these are all about relationship survival skills. How can I maintain my belongingness, inclusion, rank, and status within this group or tribe so that I have my collective survival ensured? Because it is really scary in the nervous system, in buddy brain's terms, it is really scary to be out in the cold. Buddy brain thinks everything is an ice age. It's all an ice age. If I'm kicked out of the cave, I don't know if I will survive in the cold. I'm really very comfortable here in the cave with the warm fire and knowing that we have all that mastodon meat, stored in the back of the cave for the winter. I will not be very comfortable out there in the world trying to get these things on my own. And that is where buddy brain comes in. It's like, oh, I definitely want to be a good buddy and stay here in the tribe. The other little thing we put on our little note here about buddy brain is that group of survival strategies, let's call it, go hand in hand with bonding and attachments. And the buddy brain fears are brought up by any threat of severed attachments and loss of support. So to give you a little bit of an idea of what is coming in the future, we're going to talk about how shame is weaponized. We're going to talk about the different kinds of shame ruptures that there are, toxic shame and carried shame, but we're also going to add several others to this talk. If you appreciate this, please join us on patreon.com, where we have a newsletter and we'll be announcing our videos coming out, or stay tuned here on our channel and we'll make a playlist. Thank you for joining us. I hope we kept this short enough, and have a great day.